Oh man, I've got some good news today for y'all. Yeah, some Antifa folks, that group that Joe Biden and a bunch of Democrats say doesn't exist, right? It's not an official group or whatever they try to say, trying to gaslight us. Antifa doesn't exist. Well, we got some Antifa folks that were slapped. I mean, clobbered with some massive sentences, including one sentence that is 100 years. 100 years? Woo! Yeah, we got to talk about it. But of course, the leftist folks, they're whining and crying and complaining about these sentences. So yeah, let's get into it. This first video clip that I'm about to show you is some body cam footage from the incident. Now, the incident happened, excuse me, last year. Okay, just an FYI, and you'll see the date and everything in the body cam footage that I'm about to show you here. It's not crazy long, only about a minute, but I just want to give you guys a little refresher on what happened that day. Check it out.
From the moment the first police officer arrives,
hey, stop!
It only takes seconds.
He's running! Get on the ground!
Before he's shot in the neck. He survived and recovered from what federal authorities call a terror attack outside a North Texas ICE detention center on the 4th of July.
Do not move, you will be shot!
You're seeing the shooting and its aftermath for the first time on video obtained by WFAA.
Don't move! Put your hands!
The feds charged more than a dozen people, calling them Antifa terrorists, in a first-of-its-kind case that led to a manhunt, then guilty pleas and convictions this spring. But that night,
at least how many's with you?
Now, answers.
Don't know.
Video shows officers struggled to find everyone involved.
I do not consent to search. I don't care. To search as well.
You ain't got to consent to a damn thing today.
Dash cam audio shows others were more cooperative.
I'm just a peaceful protester.
State charges are still pending, and 9 of the suspects are appealing their federal convictions. Reporting in DFW,
So there you saw some of the body cam footage, and thankfully the officer that was hit, as you heard there, survived. Shot in the throat, which is gotta be scary. Has to be absolutely terrifying, knowing that you're hit in the throat and, you get hit in just the wrong place in your throat and it's lights out, and there's just about nothing anybody could do about it. I mean, maybe there is some medical intervention or of some sort getting hit in that vein, but not that I know of. Okay. But anyway, here's some more information about the sentencing because this is hilarious. 100 years. I'm loving it.
New at 4, 8 people convicted in last year's shooting at an ICE detention center in Alvarado learned their fates today. A federal judge in Fort Worth handed down lengthy sentences. The decision fueled protest among those claiming a violation of free speech. Andrea Lucia was inside the courtroom for the hearings. Andrea.
Yeah, the shortest sentence that we saw today was 30 years, and that went to a man who was convicted of concealing evidence in this case. Most defendants got 50 years. Then, of course, you had Benjamin Song, the apparent ringleader of the group, who was sentenced to 100 years in federal prison.
What's the call? Free the law! What's the call? Free the law!
The sentencing hearings were at times emotional. Family members, friends, even a high school history teacher testified to the character of those convicted, and at least 2 of the defendants were visibly crying. Several addressed the court directly, including Benjamin Song. He was convicted for the attempted murder of an Alvarado police lieutenant who he shot in the neck during last year's 4th of July protest over conditions at the Prairie Land Immigration Detention Center. Today, he said he acted in fear only after that officer raised his gun at a fleeing unarmed protester. Song's mother repeated his statement at a press conference outside.
I know I am the person being judged, but I also know that a case like this can become a warning to everyone else. If you speak, if you protest, if you try to protect someone, if you are associated with the wrong idea, you can be turned into a symbol instead of treated like a human being.
A federal jury, though, found Song and 7 others present at the protest provided material support to terrorists, in this case, Antifa. The defendants have maintained they are not members of any group by that name.
The 2 federal judges who split up today's hearings and handed down these sentences defended their decisions, with one of them saying that terrorism and violence are an assault to democracy. We also got statements from several top Trump administration officials praising the sentences. Those include statements from the acting director of ICE, the acting U.S. Attorney General, and FBI Director Kash Patel, who in his statement said, today's sentences show the FBI remains committed to identifying, locating, and dismantling Antifa and its funding networks across the country. Attorneys for the defendants, though, say this case has gotten way too politicized, and they have vowed to appeal it.
Appeal it all you want. All you want. To sit here and say that those folks were victims is crazy. And you can't protest? It's just crazy. That woman's son, I believe his name was Benjamin, shot an officer in the throat because the officer was prepared to defend himself against individuals, so-called protesting with rifles. So you shot the officer? Me personally, I think that should be an automatic death penalty. Shooting an officer. That's just my humble opinion on it. But y'all can let me know yours in the comments. Because if you're willing to shoot an officer, then you're willing to shoot just about anybody for any given reason. So yeah, defending somebody from an officer is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, let's hop into this clip of, of course, the leftists have to cry and complain because their comrades, Antifa, are going down with some hefty sentences. And, it's interesting because had the shoe been on the other foot, I guarantee you, they would be clapping like a bunch of seals in a circus if some, individual on the right, did something similar and got a lengthy sentence. They'd be clapping like a bunch of seals in a circus. They were clapping when nurses were fired when they didn't want to get the COVID jab. Y'all remember that? At first, the doctors and the nurses were lifesavers. They were amazing folks. And then when some of them said, no, I don't want to get the splooge put in my arm, and they were fired, people clapped. People cheered. These leftist individuals told them that they were horrible people and they should have to pay extra on insurance and all of this other stuff. They were putting people's lives at risk and all of this other nonsense. So yeah, I don't feel bad for them at all.
It's shocking to all of us, devastating to the families. 50 to 100-year sentences. Those are essentially life sentences for all of the young people in this case. Largely of whom were engaged in nonviolent protest at an ICE detention facility. How did we get here? So the government in this case sought a novel, first time that this has happened, use of a rarely used statute, the provision of material support to terrorists. And that has not been used in the purely domestic context.
You mean rarely used like when you guys all convicted Trump of 34 felony counts? You mean like that? Rarely used? Okay. Don't feel bad at all. I don't feel bad at all. You guys did the same thing to Uncle Trump, and now the shoe's on the other foot and you want to cry about it.
For this kind of conduct. That statute also does not require any connection to a domestic terrorist organization or any kind of a domestic terrorist organization. When the government sought prosecution under this statute, they sought to seek a very dangerous precedent that now allows them to target any American engaged in protests that results in even the most minor damage to property destruction. Any American can be targeted that way now. It does not require ties to Antifa or to any domestic terrorist organization. It just requires one of these underlying statutes. That's a dangerous precedent, and what allowed them to stack these charges so high on Tuesday. On Tuesday, what happened is the federal sentencing, people were anticipating maximum sentences of 20 years, maybe 30 years. The way they reached this sentence is the judge used this very rarely used and the most extreme federal sentencing guideline called the terrorism enhancement to inflict maximum sentences on every count of conviction for these defendants, and then abused his discretion to do something that is very rarely done in cases like this. He ordered each sentence to be served consecutively, not concurrently. So each sentence is served consecutively, resulting in sentences for 50 to 100 years in these cases. That terrorism enhancement that I mentioned only requires that the offense is calculated to influence or affect the conduct of government through intimidation or retaliation. That's a very broad, has a very broad application, and the government in past recent years has sought that in a lot of these prosecutions that people don't pay a lot of attention to, and so now it's very broadly applied. Seeking it in this case meant that the guidelines, this sort of federal sentencing structure that's supposed to tailor a sentence to each defendant. My client, for example, a young mother to a 12-year-old daughter.
And why wasn't she at home with her 12-year-old daughter rather than being out with some terrorists shooting police officers in the throat? I don't care. Oh, she had a 12-year-old daughter. Then why wasn't she at home with her? Clearly, that daughter didn't mean a whole lot at the moment. At the time, at least. So, no, I don't care. You telling me that she has a 12-year-old daughter goes in one ear and out the other. Congratulations. You both played yourselves. Because once again, had the shoe been on the other foot and this was, some Republican, they'd be clapping like a bunch of seals in the circus. Clapping all over the place. Key, and ha, and high-fiving each other. Look at those right-wingers. So I don't want to hear it.
An artist, a poet, never been in trouble with the law, never even missed a parking ticket. The sentences are supposed to account for all of these unique situations. The fact, that she has no criminal history. But the terrorism enhancement undoes all of that. It recommends a maximum sentence on every charge for every defendant. That's how it operates, because it automatically designates them as a career offender. It's particularly abusive in this case, though, because it results in a significantly unwarranted sentencing disparity in the United States amongst defendants that have been convicted of similar conduct. Now, in these kinds of cases where the government is bringing a novel charge under a rarely used statute and terrorism, you may only have a couple or a handful of cases that are relevant to kind of distinguish your client or show where the expected range should be. But in this case, we actually had 1,500 plus very recent federal prosecutions related to similar conduct that should have informed what these sentences should have looked like. And that was of the January 6 defendants. The January 6 defendants were involved in rioting.
Completely different situation and circumstance.
Carrying massive arsenals of weapons, lots of discussions ahead of time that didn't exist in this case about targeting law enforcement, wanting to kill members of Congress, them actually storming the Capitol.
You mean when the doors were open and they were guided in?
And it resulted in injury of 140 officers in that case. The government in that case could have sought prosecution under this same material supportive terrorism statute. They didn't for those defendants. And they could have sought the terrorism enhancement in those.
They didn't because the shoe didn't fit.
Those cases because it applied. I told you that vague, calculated to influence or affect the conduct of government could have applied it in all of those prosecutions. It's only sought them in a small handful. And where they sought the terrorism enhancement, the courts then rightly decided not to apply it in the vast majority of the small selection of cases where they sought it, because they said it was overkill, not representative, and would result in unwarranted sentencing disparity. The average sentence in the Capitol riots, which had far more serious conduct than the Prairie Line 9 defendants, was 26 months. So we have a massive unwarranted.
Should have been 0 months. Should have been 0 months. Because we've gone on to find out a whole lot about that situation. Like, there was FBI agents injected into that crowd. Did we ever even figure out who that one guy was? I can't remember his name now. Jeez. Why am I drawing a blank? I could see him too. The guy that was like trying to rile up the crowd. We gotta go to the Capitol. That guy. Did we ever even figure out exactly who he was? Whether he was an agent? I can't remember. Y'all let me know in the comments. So yeah, totally different situation or circumstance. The only person that died that day was one of us and not an officer, even though, you know, leftists want to say, oh, there were officers that died that day. No. That is a total lie. But, you know, of course, that's all leftists do is lie. Are we surprised? No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, massive sentences. The shortest sentence was 30 years. So great news, man. Amazing news. And hopefully this quells any more violence from these Antifa folks, and we can get back to regular America. If you want to protest, that's completely fine. I 100% agree that people should be allowed to protest whenever and however they choose. But when you get violent, when you start assaulting people or shooting officers, you've now crossed the line. And that is exactly what happened in that case. And that is exactly what happens at a lot of these Antifa riots or wherever these leftists are. You're constantly seeing people on the right getting assaulted. Not long ago, Savannah Hernandez was assaulted by that family. Right on video. That is the recurring theme with these leftists. They throw rocks and try to hide their hands. Well, there's no more hiding your hands now. All right. Y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Was the sentence long enough? Y'all let me know. Peace and love. I'm out.